Mrs. Wilson is a typical hiring person forward instead of backward. When she was in the detention center, she needed Jenna to support her, so she was extremely polite to her at that time, and treated her like her own daughter. But in fact, she doesn't even look down on a vulgar village woman like Jenna. Therefore, from the day she left the detention center, she had completely forgotten her. For her, Jenna is only a tool that must be used in a special period. After that special period, she never wants to have anything to do with her. However, she never expected that this Jenna would appear in her own home inexplicably. Jenna didn't expect that the old lady would deny what she had done. In her opinion, it was obviously Mrs. Wilson who saved them, arranged for the driver to pick them up to Thompson, and entered the fingerprints on the gate. Why did she deny it at this time? Thinking of this, Jenna asked with a puzzled face, "Old lady, what's wrong with you? You did all these good things, so why are you reluctant to admit it?" "Yeah." Tabia and Lexi also came over and asked uncomprehendingly, "Old lady, you obviously did all this. Why are you denying it? Why is that?" Mrs. Wilson was surrounded by the three of them, feeling the stinky smell on their bodies, feeling dizzy, and choking her coughing. The three of them didn't pay much attention to personal hygiene, and it was winter now, their clothes were thick, they didn't pay much attention to hygiene, didn't take a bath or change their clothes, so that the three of them had a strong body odor. Now 3 people surrounded the old lady, and the smell was sour and unbearable for her. While covering her nose, Mrs. Wilson said grievously, "Jenna, you really misunderstood. I really didn't do these things." Jenna smiled, showing her big yellow teeth, and said with a smile, "Oh, old lady, I know you have a good heart, and you may not want to say something, but it doesn't matter, the relationship between our inmates is deep after all. Now, the 3 of us have also come out. From now on, we will all stay by your side and take care of you." Lexi on the side also said, "Yes, old lady, when you didn't come back, the 3 of us had already arranged a room. Fortunately, your villa is big enough and there are enough rooms. From now on, we will live in 3 of them. Here, you are the mothers of the 3 of us." "What?" When Mrs. Wilson heard this, she burst into flames and blurted out, "You have arranged the rooms. Who gives you the power?" Lexi didn't expect the old lady to suddenly get angry, and hurriedly asked, "What's the matter, old lady? You let us come over and live with you, we must get a share of the room." Mrs. Wilson trembled angrily, and said, "This is my house, so I won't be held accountable if you break in without permission, but who gives you the right to divide my bedrooms? Leave immediately." Wendy hurried over at this time and said in a low voice, "Grandma, we are currently short of manpower, so let them help, and let them go when Dad and brother are better off." Mrs. Wilson waved her hand and said coldly, "I can't let them be here without manpower. They are so stinky to live like this. Letting them stay 1 more minute will be my birthday. Besides, Mr. Regnar will arrange a helper for us. Yes, it must be 10,000 times stronger than these 3 stinky ladies." After that, she looked at Jenna and said sharply, "You 3, get out of here quickly." Jenna was stunned. She looked at Mrs. Wilson and said in disbelief, "Lady, you will let us get out? This is too much. Don't forget, we were in the detention center, but the 3 of us have been taking care of you and helping you. Even your daughter-in-law Elaine, we helped you teach her a lesson." Mrs. Wilson asked viciously, "Did I ask you to help me? When did I say and asked you for Elaine to teach her a lesson? It was entirely because you felt that Elaine was insulting that you started beating her." Jenna was extremely disappointed. "Mrs. Wilson, you are really turning your face faster than turning a book. Back in the detention center, when we maintained you so much, I didn't expect to return to such a result. Buy best-selling books online." Mrs. Wilson said blankly, "I'm really sorry, I let you down, but this is also a lesson for you, telling you to recognize your identity in the future, don't think about utopian dreams all day." Jenna gritted her teeth and said, "Oh, old lady, are you talking like this? Okay, then I won't leave. I think what you can do to me." Tabia and Lexi also said repeatedly, "Yes. We won't leave." Mrs. Wilson did not expect that the 3 of them would even want to play rogues, and immediately said coldly, "You 3, don't mess around here with me. You don't look in the mirror to see yourself. Just like you, your whole body is stinking. Are the soil buns worthy of living in this Thompson first-class villa? If even you can live in such a luxurious villa, it is really not long-sighted. With that said, Mrs. Wilson said with an arrogant face, I was in the detention center when the phoenix fell into the chicken coop and was forced to stay in the chicken coop for 2 days. You really thought I was with you? Am I that kind of person? Tabia yelled, Mrs. Wilson. As the saying goes, a troubled phoenix is not as good as a chicken. Don't go too far, you dead old woman. If you annoy us, even if you are old, we will beat you, yes. Lexi also immediately agreed. How we beat Elaine back then, now we can beat you the same, Mrs. Wilson curled her lips and said, You try to hit me. As long as you dare to do it, I will call the police immediately. You will definitely be caught back. Jenna also clenched her fists. Her violent temper made her wish she would rush to punch Mrs. Wilson now. However, before she came out, she thought about the instructions given to her by the prison guards, and she thought to herself, the prison guards have said that we are all on bail pending trial. Although we have temporarily obtained personal freedom, we must abide by the law, otherwise, because if we don't abide by the law and cause trouble, we will most likely be caught again. Not only will we have to make up for the remaining sentence, but it might also even worsen. Thinking of this, she had to suppress the anger in her heart, and said coldly, Old lady, I can see it too, you are idle and you have nothing to do with us, right? Since you think we can't climb up to you, then is it okay to go, Mrs. Wilson nodded. It's best to leave as soon as possible, or I will call the police right away. Jenna gritted her teeth and said to the 2 people around her, Okay, anyway, we have released it in advance. There is no need to go back to this matter. Pack up things, let's go. Although the other 2 were unwilling to do so, they did not dare to make a mistake at this time, for fear of returning to the detention center, so they nodded angrily. The 3 of them packed their belongings in anger and loss, and prepared to leave with the blanket. Mrs. Wilson has been supervising them. Seeing that they have packed their things, she fanned her hands in front of her nose and said with disgust on her face, Oh, it's so stinking. You guys hurry up and roll as far as possible. If you dare to come again, I will call the police and arrest you as soon as possible. Jenna felt the great humiliation, but because she was afraid of causing trouble, she could only grit her teeth and endure it, and said to the 2 people around her, Let's go. At this moment, 7 or 8 strong men suddenly pushed in from outside, saw this situation, and asked, What's the matter? Where are you 3 going? Jenna thought that these fierce and strong men were all found by Mrs. Wilson, and immediately said nervously, Don't be impulsive, big brothers, we are leaving. We're leaving. The leader said coldly, Why are you going? Mr. Regnar said, The 3 of you will treat this as your own home from now on. This house belongs to him, not to Mrs. Wilson. Mrs. Wilson is like you. She's just borrowing to live here, so as long as we nod our heads, they don't have the right to drive you away.